You never really see it coming. You meet someone, and right away, something feels off the usual script. It's not just attraction, not just getting along. It's like a switch flips inside you, and suddenly things feel more electric. Every conversation has extra layers. You lock eyes a bit longer than normal. There's this weird sense of familiarity that's hard to pin down. Just as you start to trust that feeling, the whole thing falls apart. They pull away. Or maybe you do. The energy fizzles. Something that felt wide open suddenly gets muddled and confusing. Now you're left holding a bunch of questions with no easy answers. If it was real, why did it end so fast? Most people will boil it down to something simple. If they wanted to, they would. End of story. Move on. Honestly, that's not how the mind works. Carl Jung had this idea. When someone hits you like a bolt from the blue, it's because they've touched something deep and unconscious in you. And when you get rejected right after that, it doesn't always mean the connection was flimsy. Sometimes it means it struck a nerve that's too raw to handle. The ego kicks in here. In Jungian psychology, your ego is like the manager of your identity. It keeps your story tidy, makes sure things feel steady. It hates chaos. When something comes along that threatens to shake up your sense of self, the ego freaks out and throws up defenses. A strong attraction does exactly that. Meet someone who really gets under your skin, and suddenly your inner world starts to shift. You picture new futures. Feelings show up you didn't expect. You start thinking about risks you never would have considered. You feel exposed, and that threatens your sense of control. Ego doesn't care how deep something is. It cares if it feels safe. So when love feels like it might knock you off balance, ego tries to put everything back the way it was. It stirs up doubt. It creates distance. It can turn closeness into something that feels dangerous. That's why rejection often comes right when the bond feels strongest. The closer you get, the more the old walls start to tremble. But there's more underneath. Jung wrote a lot about the anima and animus, those inner archetypal images that shape what kind of person you fall for. The anima is the unconscious feminine side in men. The animus is the unconscious masculine side in women. These hidden figures shape what feels magical, meaningful, even destined. Sometimes someone seems special because they match that inner image. You're not just seeing them, you're seeing them through the filter of your own psyche. That's what projection is. Projection isn't lying to yourself. It's just how your mind works. You assign someone qualities that actually live in your own unconscious. You feel drawn to them almost like they're not fully real. Deep down, you're responding to a part of yourself you haven't fully owned yet. That's why falling in love can feel otherworldly, because on some level, you're falling for a lost piece of yourself. But projection doesn't last forever. Sooner or later, the other person does something that doesn't fit your story. They have needs or flaws you didn't expect. They don't live up to the role you cast them in. That's when the illusion cracks. Rejection often shows up right here. Sometimes they bail because they feel the weight of being put on a pedestal. Sometimes you leave because the fantasy breaks and you can't make sense of what's real anymore. Either way, what falls apart isn't always love. It's the illusion. And when that illusion breaks, it can feel almost holy. But Jung saw this as part of the process. As long as you're tangled up in projection, you're not actually relating to the real person. Real intimacy only happens when you see the other person as separate, flawed, real, outside your inner movie. Rejection forces that split. It yanks your energy back inside. It shakes up the fantasy and leaves you looking at what's actually there when the glow disappears. And what's left? Usually it's the shadow. The shadow is all the stuff you'd rather not admit about yourself. Old wounds, unmet needs, anger you've hidden, fear of being left, all those feelings of not measuring up. You can ignore these things, but they don't go anywhere. They pop up, especially in close relationships. That's why rejection stings so much. One canceled plan can bring up memories of being ignored as a kid. A weird tone in a text can tap right into your fear of being replaceable. The other person becomes a mirror, not because they mean to hurt you, but because intimacy drops your guard and lets those old shadows come out. When rejection happens, the pain usually reveals an old script. I'm not enough. I'm too much. I always get left behind. These stories didn't start with this relationship. They've been there, hiding in the background. The relationship just turned on the lights. Jung thought that becoming whole, what he called individuation, means you have to face the parts of yourself you'd rather ignore. And let's be honest, that's uncomfortable. At first, it feels more like loss than growth. That's what gives rejection a kind of spiritual weight. Not spiritual in the sense of something mystical, but in the way your psyche pushes you toward wholeness. Life has a way of arranging moments that show you where you're split inside. When a relationship falls apart, you're left with nothing but your own inner world. You can distract yourself, find someone new, jump into the same story, blame bad luck, or you can actually look at what's been brought up. Most people go for distraction. They jump into a new relationship, replay the old script, and chalk it up to fate or rotten luck. But if you stop and actually sit with it, something changes. You start to wonder, what was I hoping this person would give me? Was I looking for safety, validation, a sense of identity, meaning? And why did I think only they could give me that? When you intentionally pull back your projections, you start to reclaim those qualities for yourself. The strength you admired, the depth you wanted, the intensity you ached for. Turns out, they're not just out there in other people, they're possibilities inside you too. So rejection stops being just about being left. It starts to become a nudge inward. That doesn't mean every breakup is destined to circle back. Pain doesn't transform you all by itself. Growth happens when you actually reflect. It's worth saying, there's a difference between rejection that invites self-examination and abuse that erodes your dignity. You don't need to endure harm to grow. When someone crosses the line into manipulation or cruelty, the lesson isn't about integrating your shadow, it's about protecting yourself. But when a real connection suddenly ends, there's sometimes this sense of initiation. Initiation is a kind of symbolic death. The you who believed love would fix everything, gone. The identity that leaned on someone else for stability, time to let that go. It hurts. That's heartbreak. But heartbreak can stretch you. When you stop searching for someone to save you from your own emptiness, relationships stop being about survival. They become a choice. Here's the twist. A lot of the time, real love starts with rejection. Rejection cuts through dependency. It pushes you to grow up emotionally. It forces you to tell the difference between longing and projection. It makes it clear that nobody else can patch up your inner gaps. Only when you can stand on your own, aware of your shadows, owning your pain, can love actually feel mutual instead of just filling a hole. So rejection doesn't mean the connection was pointless. Sometimes it means it woke up something deep inside you. Whether or not you get back together is less important than what you learned. The real question isn't, will they return? It's, who am I becoming now that this happened? Jung kept saying, you don't become whole by dodging pain. You become whole by letting it in and making it part of you. If you're sitting in the middle of rejection right now, try not to see it as some final word on your value. Instead, ask yourself, what part of me feels most shaken? What belief just got exposed? What expectation just fell apart? There's power in looking at all that. Love isn't just about feeling good together. It's about waking up. It's about seeing yourself and the other person clearly. No more projections, no more illusions. Rejection clears that haze. It's not gentle. Usually it's blunt. But it can be the start of a deeper relationship with yourself. And from that place, love, no matter who it's with, feels less like patching up emptiness and more like sharing what's already full. If any of this changed how you see your own heartbreak, pause for a second. What did that last loss show you about yourself? Not about what they did wrong, but about your own patterns? Awareness is the first step toward transformation, and transformation is the ground on which real love stands.